I kissed my roommate because my ex was watching, and that should have been the most humiliating sentence I ever had to admit about myself. It was not. The most humiliating part was that I had not planned it. I had planned dignity. I had planned a black dress with clean lines, silver earrings, a mouth that did not tremble, and a smile sharp enough to make everyone at the opening believe that being left by Celeste Vale had made me interesting instead of breakable. I had planned to drink one glass of champagne, congratulate the artist, let the room see that I could stand under good lighting without collapsing, and leave before anyone remembered to pity me. I had even practiced saying, "I'm happy for them," in my bathroom mirror, until the words sounded less like a lie and more like a crime I had gotten away with. Then I walked into the gallery and saw Celeste with her hand at the small of Talia's back, and every elegant plan I had made turned into ash. Talia had been my best friend for 7 years. She knew which side of the bed I slept on, which corner store sold the only ginger candies that helped my migraines, and exactly how long I could pretend I was fine before I needed someone to sit beside me in silence. She had been the person I called the night Celeste and I first kissed under a broken awning outside a bookstore in the rain. She had screamed into the phone as if love were a sporting event and I had just scored. She had sat cross-legged on my floor 3 months later while I cried because Celeste forgot my birthday, and then charmed me into apologizing for being hurt. "She's complicated," Talia had said, rubbing circles over my back. "But she loves you. I can see it." Apparently Talia could see many things, including openings. The gallery belonged to Celeste's circle, which meant it was full of women in silk blouses, men with soft watches, and people who thought cruelty sounded better if spoken quietly. Celeste stood near the central installation in ivory, her hair pinned with gold, looking exactly as expensive and untouchable as she had the first night I believed being chosen by her meant I had become extraordinary. Talia stood beside her in emerald satin, laughing into Celeste's shoulder with a familiarity that made my ribs tighten. Celeste saw me before Talia did. Of course she did. Celeste always saw an audience before anyone else saw a person. Her smile arrived slowly, bright and mournful, as if I were the ghost at her own tragic opera. "Mira," she said, and half the room turned because Celeste had a talent for making names sound like announcements. "You came." I had. I wished I could deny it. I wished I could claim I had wandered in by accident while searching for a laundromat or a moral lesson. Instead, I stood beneath a chandelier shaped like falling glass and felt every eye in the room measure the distance between my face and my ruin. "I was invited," I said. Talia's smile flickered. Not guilt, not exactly. Irritation. She had always hated when I made a simple fact difficult to manage. Celeste tilted her head. "I wasn't sure it would be comfortable for you." There it was. The soft knife, polished for public use. Not "I hurt you." Not "I left you for the woman who knew all your weak places." Not "I turned your private pain into a rumor before you had time to name it." Just concern, gentle enough that if I bled, people would wonder why I had such delicate skin. "I'm comfortable," I lied. A woman near the champagne table made a face I recognized from bad movies and worse brunches. Sympathy with the thrill of access. Talia looked at me then, really looked, and for 1 second, I saw the girl who had once shared instant noodles with me in a heatless apartment while we promised each other we would never become the kind of women who traded loyalty for a better table. Then Celeste's fingers touched her waist, and Talia's expression closed like a door. "Mira, can we not do this here?" Talia murmured. "Do what?" I asked. "Make it dramatic." I almost laughed. It came out as something thinner. I walked into a room. That was the whole performance. Celeste sighed, not with frustration, but with practiced sadness. "No one wanted you to find out this way." That was when the humiliation turned physical. Heat moved up my neck. My palms went cold. Because the room knew. The room had known before I did. The barista from our usual cafe had known when she stopped asking whether Celeste wanted oat milk in both cups. The mutual friends who had gone quiet in our group chat had known. The gallery director who had kissed my cheek at the door had known. People had watched me arrive in my black dress and silver earrings, carrying my little practiced dignity like a paper umbrella in a storm, and they had already decided whether it would hold. I was about to say something unforgivable. I could feel it forming, bright and ugly, a sentence that would make me feel powerful for 3 seconds and ashamed for 3 months. Then a voice behind me said, "Mira, there you are." Sloane Park entered conversations the way winter entered a room when a window opened. Quietly, completely, without asking permission. She was my roommate, because 6 months earlier my landlord raised the rent, my freelance design work had become an unreliable joke, and Sloane had posted a spare room listing written with such blunt severity that I trusted it more than friendliness. No parties, no smoking, no passive-aggressive dish arrangements, rent due on the 1st, guest policy negotiable if guests possess basic manners. I had moved into her Williamsburg loft with 3 suitcases, 4 plants, and a private determination not to become attached to anyone who used labels on spice jars. Sloane was 32, a structural engineer with a scar through her left eyebrow, hair cut at her jaw, and a face so composed strangers apologized after bumping into her. She owned 2 black coats, many white shirts, and exactly 1 mug that said this meeting could have been an email. She was not my friend, I would have said then. She was the person who fixed the radiator without mentioning that I cried in the shower. She crossed the gallery in a dark suit that made everyone else look overdressed and uncertain. I had not asked her to come. I had mentioned the opening once while digging through the fridge for soy sauce, and she had said, "That sounds unpleasant," which was Sloane for concern. Now she stopped beside me, close enough that the sleeve of her jacket brushed my bare arm, and the room changed. Celeste's smile held, but something careful entered it. "Sloane," Celeste said, "I didn't realize you knew Mira." "We share an address," Sloane replied. People sometimes mistook Sloane's directness for rudeness. I had learned it was more precise than that. She did not waste words because words, to her, were beams in a building, load-bearing or ornamental, and she had limited patience for ornament in emergencies. Talia blinked. "Your roommates?" "Yes," Sloane said. "Usually that is what sharing an address implies." A laugh escaped someone behind me. Celeste's gaze flicked toward the sound and back. She did not like being made ridiculous. It was the only thing I still knew about her that gave me any immediate comfort. Sloane turned to me. Her gray eyes moved over my face with the efficiency of someone checking for cracks after impact. She did not ask if I was okay. That would have forced me either to lie or collapse. Instead, she held out a glass of water. "You forgot to eat," she said. It was so ordinary, so nearly domestic that my throat closed. I had forgotten. She had noticed because the container of noodles I had made at home sat untouched in the fridge, and because Sloane noticed things without performing attention. Celeste noticed too. Not that I had not eaten. She noticed that Sloane had noticed. "How sweet," Celeste said. "Mira always did need someone to look after her when she got emotional." The room went softer around the edges. I knew that tone. I had lived under it for 2 years. Affection sharpened into insult, offered with a smile so anyone who objected looked unstable. My dignity, already damaged, gave a final dangerous flutter. I set the water down on a passing tray with too much force. "I don't need looking after," I said. "No," Celeste said gently. "Of course not." Sloane's hand touched my elbow. Not possessive, not restraining. A question made of fingertips. I looked up at her. She was watching Celeste, not me, and there was nothing warm in her expression. "Mira chooses her own exits," Sloane said. Celeste's mouth curved. "Does she?" I should have left. That would have been wise. I should have thanked Sloane, picked up my coat, and carried what remained of my pride into the night. Instead, I saw Talia looking at Sloane's hand on my elbow. I saw the small pinch between her brows, the startled calculation. Celeste saw it too. And because Celeste could not leave any unclaimed attention alone, she looked Sloane up and down with lazy interest. "Careful," Celeste said. "Mira gets attached when people are kind to her." That was the moment something in me broke in a very quiet, very stupid way. I turned to Sloane. "Kiss me." Her eyes came to mine. The entire room seemed to tilt toward us. "What?" she said. My face burned. My pride was dragging me by the wrist now, wild and barefoot. "Please." I meant make them stop looking at me like I am abandoned. I meant give me a wall to stand behind. I meant I know this is unfair and I will hate myself later, but right now I need to be anything other than pathetic. Sloane understood enough to go still. For half a second I thought she would refuse, and she would have been right too. Then her gaze shifted past me to Celeste, and whatever she saw there made her jaw set. She stepped closer. "One kiss," she said, low enough that only I could hear. "Then we leave." I nodded, because I had expected a favor and received terms. Sloane's hand rose to my cheek. She did not grab me. She gave me time. That was the first shock. The second was her mouth. I had imagined, in the frantic, shallow part of my mind where this terrible idea had formed, a brief theatrical press of lips, convincing enough from a distance and forgettable from inside my own body. Sloane did not kiss like theater. She kissed like she had been patient for reasons she had never told me. Her thumb brushed my cheek once, almost in apology, and then the kiss deepened with a controlled hunger that made my hand close around her lapel. The gallery vanished into a bright white silence. My anger lost its words. My shame lost its audience. There was only the warmth of her mouth, the clean cedar scent of her coat, the careful strength of the hand at my waist, and the terrible knowledge that she was kissing me back too hard for a lie. When she pulled away, she did not look at Celeste. She looked at me. "We're leaving," she said. I followed because my knees had become unreliable and because for once, someone else had taken the room's judgment and made it irrelevant. Behind us, I heard Talia whisper my name. I did not turn around. Outside, the November air hit my face like a slap. My breath came out uneven. Sloane walked beside me until we reached the corner, then stopped under the awning of a closed florist. Rain had begun, fine and silver, blurring the neon across the street. She released my hand. I had not realized she was holding it. "Are you hurt?" she asked. "No." Then, because honesty had apparently decided to ruin the evening completely, I added, "Yes." Sloane nodded once, as if both answers had structural value. "Physically?" "No." "Good." I laughed, and it sounded almost like a sob. "That's your concern, physical damage assessment? It's the only category I can resolve quickly." I leaned back against the brick wall, rain dampening my hair, and covered my face with both hands. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For using you." A cab splashed through the gutter. Sloane waited until the sound passed. She was good at waiting. It made people confess more than they planned. "You asked," she said. I agreed. "That doesn't make it fair." "No." I dropped my hands and looked at her. She stood with rain on her dark hair, expression unreadable. Her lipstick was smudged. Because of me. My stomach tightened with something dangerously close to wonder. "Why did you agree?" I asked. Her gaze held mine for a moment too long. "Because she was enjoying your pain." That should have been the end of it. A roommate's blunt protection, a bad night, an awkward conversation, a cab home. But when we got back to the loft, everything had shifted 3 inches to the left. The kitchen looked the same, with its concrete counters and Sloane's labeled jars, and my ridiculous basil plant leaning toward the window like a gossip. The living room looked the same, books stacked under the coffee table, Sloane's drafting papers rolled in a basket, my half-finished client mock-up spread across the small desk by the brick wall. But I could no longer move through the space without remembering her hand at my waist. I took off my earrings with fingers that shook. Sloane hung her coat by the door. Tea? Are we going to pretend that didn't happen? She paused, one hand on the kettle. I assumed pretending would be your preference tonight. It was such a considerate answer that it made me angry. Not at her. At the tenderness of being offered room I did not know what to do with. I don't know what my preference is, I said. Then tea is a reasonable temporary decision. I sat at the island because standing felt dramatic and I had exhausted my quota. Sloane made ginger tea without asking. She knew about the migraines. Of course she did. She put the mug in front of me and took the seat across the counter, not beside me. Distance as kindness. I hated how much I noticed. I shouldn't have asked you to kiss me, I said. No. I looked up. But I shouldn't have done it like that, she added. The heat that moved through me then was not embarrassment. It was memory. Like what? Sloane's eyes lowered to her mug. As if I meant it. The loft became very quiet. Somewhere below us, a truck backed up, beeping steadily, an absurd little sound under the weight of that sentence. Did you? I asked. Her fingers tightened around the mug. You had a terrible evening. I'm not discussing that tonight. You can't say something like that and then become municipal about timing. A faint crease appeared between her brows. Municipal. Responsible in a way that makes everyone pay taxes. For the first time that night, Sloane almost smiled. It was small, gone quickly, but I saw it. I had been living with her for 6 months and had seen her fix a leaking pipe at midnight, stare down a neighbor who kept stealing packages, and reorganize the pantry with moral conviction. I had not known that Almost Smile could undo me more thoroughly than Celeste's approval ever had. We'll talk tomorrow, she said. I wanted to argue. I also wanted to sleep for a week. Fine. I took 3 steps toward my room before she said my name. Mira. I turned. Sloane was still at the island, one hand around her mug, her posture straight as a rule she was afraid to break. You were not pathetic in there. The words struck with humiliating force because they named the fear beneath everything. I nodded once, quickly, and went to my room before she saw my face collapse. The next morning, the kiss had become a public event. Celeste's world was efficient that way. By 9, I had 4 messages from people who had ignored me for weeks. By 10, a photo had appeared in a private group chat I had forgotten to leave. Me in my black dress. Sloane bent toward me, her hand on my waist, my fingers gripping her lapel as if I might fall without her. The caption was from Lila, who sold ceramic bowls and secrets with equal enthusiasm. Well, that escalated. Under it, Celeste had written nothing. Talia had left the chat. I stood in the kitchen staring at my phone until Sloane slid a plate of toast into my line of sight. Eat, she said. I am a meme. You are a photograph. With implications. Most photographs have them. I stared at her. She was wearing a white shirt with the sleeves rolled, hair still damp from the shower, looking unfairly unaffected for someone who had rearranged my bloodstream 12 hours earlier. You are very calm for a woman whose face is currently being analyzed by lesbians with too much disposable income, I said. Sloane poured coffee. They can analyze without my assistance. Celeste is going to think we're together. That was the intended effect. It was my intended effect. You were supposed to be the sensible one. I was. I put a limit on the kiss. I nearly choked on nothing. That was the limited version. Her gaze flicked to mine. There it was again, a silence with heat under it. Then she looked away first. We need rules. Rules? If this continues, if what continues? She set her cup down with care. Your ex will not let the moment remain ambiguous. If she believes you performed for jealousy, she will punish you socially. If she believes you moved on first, she may become careless. Either way, she will push. I folded my arms. You sound like you've studied Celeste. I've lived with the aftermath of her. That quieted me. Sloane had been present for more than I wanted to admit. The nights I came home from Celeste's apartment and pretended red eyes meant wind. The mornings I erased drafts of apology texts. The week after the breakup when I did not say breakup because Celeste had insisted we were taking space while she took my best friend to dinner. Sloane had seen all of it from the edge of the room and said very little. Maybe because she knew pity would make me defensive. Maybe because Sloane's care had always moved through actions rather than speeches. "What are you proposing?" I asked. "A temporary arrangement." The phrase made me laugh too sharply. "Are you offering to fake date me over breakfast?" "Yes." I stopped laughing. Sloane picked up her coffee. "Only if you want. Publicly, we allow people to assume we're together. Privately, nothing changes without consent. No surprise touches. No staged affection unless discussed. You can end it at any time. The goal is to give you room to recover without Celeste controlling the narrative." I looked at the toast, because looking at her was suddenly difficult. "And what do you get?" "An opportunity to make Celeste uncomfortable. That can't be all." "No," she said. The toast cooled between us. "Sloane." Her jaw moved once. "I don't enjoy watching you be made smaller." I wanted to make a joke. I wanted to ask if she had a savior complex and a filing cabinet for emotional emergencies. Instead, I thought of the kiss, of her thumb on my cheek, of the way she had looked at me afterward as if the room had not existed. "This could get messy," I said. "It already is." "I'm still hurt." "I know. I might use you again without meaning to. Then I'll say no." "You're very confident in your no." "I practice." I took a bite of toast because she was right, and I hated letting her be right on an empty stomach. The butter had melted into the bread. I had not realized she knew I liked the edges almost burned. "Temporary," I said. "Temporary. No kissing unless mutually agreed." Sloane nodded. "No making decisions for me." "Agreed." "No looking at me like that in the kitchen before coffee." Her eyebrows rose. "Like what?" "Like you're measuring the load-bearing capacity of my restraint." This time, the smile stayed long enough to become real. Noted. Our temporary fake relationship began with a grocery run. I thought that was humiliatingly uncinematic. But Sloane said romance performed in produce aisles was less suspicious than romance performed only at parties. She stood beside me at the apples and asked, very seriously, whether hand-holding was acceptable in front of acquaintances. I told her she was making me feel like a municipal project again. She said, "Consent is not bureaucracy." And I had to stare very hard at a pair until my face cooled. We were seen, of course. In a city that claimed to be enormous, every lesbian with unresolved history apparently shopped within 12 blocks of my apartment. Lila from the group chat spotted us near the cheese. Her eyes widened. Sloane, without altering expression, reached past me for a wedge of aged cheddar and let her free hand rest lightly at the base of my spine. She had asked 2 minutes earlier. I had said yes while pretending to compare prices. Still, the touch moved through me with ridiculous force. "Mira," Lila said. "Sloane." "Wow, hi." "Hello," Sloane said. Lila's gaze bounced between us like a trapped moth. "You two are shopping." "That is often what people do here," Sloane said. I bit my lip. Lila laughed too loudly. "Right, obviously. I just meant, after last night." "Last night was last night," I said, surprised by how steady I sounded. Sloane's hand did not move, not claiming, anchoring. Lila looked at it and smiled with the private thrill of information gained. By dinner, Celeste would know that Sloane and I bought pasta, spinach, cheddar, and one embarrassing box of chocolate cereal I insisted was for emergencies. I should have felt exposed. Instead, walking home with grocery bags cutting into my fingers and Sloane matching her pace to mine, I felt a strange, stubborn spark of satisfaction. Celeste called that evening. I almost did not answer. Then Sloane looked up from assembling a bookshelf she claimed I needed because my paperbacks were approaching geological instability and said, Do you want witnesses or privacy? Witnesses, I said, before pride could interfere. She kept tightening a bolt, eyes on her work, while I answered on speaker. Mira, Celeste said, my name wrapped in velvet. I wanted to check on you. I'm fine. I heard things got a little theatrical after we left. I looked at Sloane. Her screwdriver paused. Only paused. After you left? I said. Interesting version. Celeste gave a soft laugh. You know what I mean. People are talking. People talk when they're underemployed emotionally. Sloane's mouth twitched. I'm not judging you, Celeste said. That's new. A silence. Then, gently, is this about Talia? There it was, the name placed like a glass on the edge of a table, waiting for me to knock it over. My fingers tightened around the phone. No, I said. This is about me. Mira, kissing your roommate in front of me doesn't make you powerful. Sloane set the screwdriver down. No, I said. But not answering this call again might. I hung up. My hand shook afterward. Sloane did not applaud, did not congratulate me, did not turn it into a lesson. She just picked up the screwdriver and said, "The bookshelf will be stable in 12 minutes. I laughed then, too hard, until tears came. Sloane crossed the room and stood near me, not touching. I reached out first, fingers catching her sleeve. She looked down at my hand, then at me. Can I hug you? I asked. Her answer was immediate. Yes. Sloane's hugs were not like her conversations. They were full, steady, unembarrassed by need. She wrapped one arm around my shoulders and the other around my waist, and I pressed my face into her shirt and let myself shake. Not because Celeste had called, because I had hung up, because the world had not ended, because Sloane smelled like cedar and laundry soap and the faint metallic tang of tools, because for months I had mistaken survival for healing, and now someone was holding me while I learned the difference. In the weeks that followed, Sloane and I became fluent in pretending and dangerously fluent in not pretending. We attended a birthday dinner for a mutual acquaintance where Celeste and Talia arrived late, hand in hand, as if lateness were a spotlight. Sloane asked before touching my knee under the table. I said yes. Celeste spent the entire appetizer course not looking at us so intently that even the waiter seemed uncomfortable. Talia tried to laugh with me about an old joke, and when I did not rescue her from the awkwardness, her eyes hardened. You've changed, she said in the bathroom later. I was washing my hands. The mirror showed us side by side, two women who had once known each other's faces in every kind of light. Talia looked beautiful, anxious, and angry at being made to feel either. No, I said. I stopped editing myself for people who preferred the smaller draft. She flinched. That's not fair. Fair got boring when you slept with my girlfriend. Her mouth opened, closed. For a second, guilt softened her. Then pride came back. Celeste and I didn't plan it. That must be comforting for you. You don't understand what it was like, she said, voice low. Being next to you all the time. Everyone loved you. You were talented without trying. You made struggle look poetic. I was always the friend, the funny one, the one people asked about after they asked about you. I stared at her through the mirror. So you took Celeste? She saw me. No, I said, and the certainty of it surprised both of us. She saw that you wanted to be chosen more than you wanted to be kind. Talia's eyes filled with tears, but I had learned tears did not always mean remorse. Sometimes they meant a person hated the mirror. She'll get tired of Sloane, Talia said. You know that, right? She's too cold for you. You like being adored. I dried my hands slowly. You don't know what I like anymore. When I returned to the table, Sloane stood as I approached. Not dramatically, just enough to make space, to check my face. I must have looked pale because she leaned in and murmured, "Exit?" I shook my head. Dessert. Something like approval warmed her eyes. Good. Celeste watched the exchange with a stillness that pleased me more than it should have. Revenge, I was discovering, tasted sharp and temporary. It lit the mouth and left the stomach empty. But there was another satisfaction in realizing I could remain seated at a table that once would have broken me. Not because Sloane protected me from pain, but because her presence reminded me I was allowed to protect myself. At home that night, I found Sloane on the fire escape. She went there when she needed to think, though she claimed she liked the air. The city lay beyond her in wet black layers, windows glowing, sirens soft in the distance. I climbed out carefully with 2 mugs of tea. "You are going to die out here one day," I said, "and your ghost will organize the afterlife by structural integrity." She took a mug. Someone should. I sat beside her, our knees almost touching. Almost had become a country where we spent too much time. "Talia said Celeste saw her," I said. Sloane looked into her tea. "Did that hurt?" "Yes. Not because I believe it, because I remember wanting that too. To be seen by Celeste. To be chosen by someone shiny enough that their attention made me less ordinary." I laughed softly. "That sounds ugly." "It sounds human." I looked at her profile, the sharp line of her nose, the scar at her eyebrow silvered by the city lights. "What about you? What about me? Have you ever wanted to be chosen by someone shiny?" "No. Of course not." Sloane's mouth moved. "I wanted to be chosen by someone steady." The answer was so quiet I nearly missed it. "Were you?" "For a while." I waited. She did not speak easily about herself. Most of what I knew had come from fragments. A mother in Busan she called every Sunday, a father she did not mention, an ex whose name had appeared once on a misdelivered envelope and made Sloane close down for the rest of the day. I had not asked then. Celeste had taught me to read silence as punishment. Sloane taught me it could be shelter. "Her name was Annika," Sloane said finally. "We were together 3 years. She said my calm made her feel safe. Later, she said it made her feel alone. Both were true." "What happened?" "I kept solving problems she wanted me to witness." The city hummed beneath us. I understood that sentence too well. "That sounds lonely for both of you." "Yes." "Do you still love her?" Sloane turned her mug in both hands. "No. But I remember the shape of the failure." I looked down at my tea. "Is that why you keep asking before you touch me?" "That is one reason. What's the other?" Her gaze came to mine. On the fire escape, there was nowhere for either of us to retreat without making a decision. "Because wanting to touch you does not give me the right." The air seemed to thin. I could hear my own pulse, the faint traffic below, the soft scrape of Sloane's thumb against ceramic. "And if I gave you the right?" I asked. Her eyes darkened. "Then I would still be careful." Careful should not have sounded like desire. It did. It sounded like a hand held above flame, not because it did not want warmth, but because it knew burning had consequences. I leaned closer, then stopped. Sloane noticed. Of course she noticed. "What do you want, Mira?" she asked. It was the question under all our rules, all our jokes, all our stage touches and accidental truths. I wanted Celeste to regret me. I wanted Talia to miss me. I wanted to be desired without being managed. I wanted to kiss Sloane without an audience and without revenge standing between us like a witness. "I don't know how to want something without checking who it hurts," I said. Her face softened in the dark. "Start with whether it hurts you." I did not kiss her that night. Instead, I rested my head on her shoulder after asking if I could, and she said yes in a voice that made the city feel far away. We sat there until the tea cooled and my fear settled into something quieter. Our fake relationship became convincing because it was built from true materials. Sloane learned that I hated being surprised in public, but liked small planned gestures, like her hand on the back of my chair or the brush of her knuckles against mine when Celeste entered a room. I learned that Sloane disliked crowded parties, but tolerated them if I stood to her left, because her scarred eyebrow made peripheral light strange on that side. She hated olives, loved terrible action films, and pretended not to enjoy my dramatic retellings of client emails. She could cook 4 things perfectly and burned anything else with scientific consistency. She woke early, moved quietly, and left coffee for me without comment. I began leaving sketches on her drafting table. The curve of her hand around a mug, the line of her shoulder in morning light, the fire escape railing with her shadow across it. She never mentioned them. She kept everyone in a flat drawer labeled receipts, which was either emotional avoidance or the most Sloane expression of tenderness possible. Celeste grew less elegant about us as December approached. At a charity auction, she appeared beside me while Sloane was speaking with a donor about a bridge restoration project. Celeste wore red and a smile that had ruined better evenings than mine. "She's very convincing," Celeste said. I did not pretend not to understand. "Yes." "Does she know you make people into stories when you need them?" There was a time I would have absorbed that sentence like truth. Celeste had always been skilled at using the vocabulary of intimacy as a weapon. She knew I was a designer, a romantic, a woman who collected gestures and made meaning from them, because meaning had saved me from a childhood in which no one said what they felt until it became an explosion. She knew I feared being too much. She had fed that fear and called it honesty. "Sloane knows I'm complicated," I said. "She doesn't confuse that with being disposable." Celeste's eyes cooled. "You think she's different." "I think I am." That landed. Her expression shifted before she could smooth it. For the first time, Celeste looked less like a woman who had lost a possession, and more like a woman realizing the possession had changed the locks. Behind her, Sloane's voice cut through the room. "Mira." I turned. She was not calling for help. She was offering an exit. I crossed to her because I wanted to, and because Celeste watching me go no longer felt like the point. Sloane handed me a small plate. "You hadn't eaten," she said. "You're very consistent." "I have many strengths." I looked at the plate. 2 tiny sandwiches, 1 lemon tart, no olives. "You remembered." "I usually do." The tenderness in that simple statement struck deeper than Celeste's jealousy. Being remembered without having to perform importance was unfamiliar enough to ache. I touched Sloane's wrist, forgetting for a moment where we were. Her eyes dropped to my fingers, then lifted to mine. The air changed. Around us, donors and artists and people with expensive boredom kept talking. But a small silence formed between us, private and dangerous. "Is this okay?" I whispered. Her answer came low. "Yes." I wanted to kiss her then. Not because Celeste might see, though Celeste did. Not because the room expected it. Because Sloane stood under chandelier light holding a plate of food I would actually eat. And she had remembered the olives, the migraine, the left side, the need to choose my own exits. Desire arrived not as lightning but as recognition. "Oh," I thought. "There you are." The almost kiss was interrupted by Talia, because old pain has theatrical timing. "Mira," she said, breathless, a little drunk. "Can we talk?" Sloane did not move. She looked at me. I asked myself whether leaving would be escape or choice. Then I set down the plate. 5 minutes. Talia led me to a hallway lined with framed photographs of rich people pretending generosity was candid. She wrapped her arms around herself. "Celeste is angry." "That sounds like Celeste's problem. She thinks you're trying to humiliate her. I kissed my roommate one time and bought cheese with her. If Celeste finds that humiliating, she should reflect on her confidence." Talia made a frustrated sound. "You don't get it. She hates that you look happy." I looked at the woman who had once been my safest person. "Do you?" Her eyes filled again. "I miss you." I wanted that to mean something clean. It did not. Missing someone is not the same as honoring them. Regret can be selfish. Loneliness can put on apology's coat and still be loneliness. You missed me after you lost the version of me who made you feel forgiven, I said. That's cruel. No, cruel was letting me tell you I thought Celeste was cheating and saying I was anxious while you knew the answer. Talia covered her mouth. For a second, the hallway vanished and we were in my old apartment, younger and poorer, sharing noodles and promises. I mourned that girl. I mourned the friend who had existed before envy found a place to live between us. Then Talia whispered, I was jealous of you for so long I didn't know how to stop. The confession did not heal me. It did something smaller and more useful. It made the wound ordinary. Not deserved, not inevitable, just human ugliness left unattended until it grew teeth. I loved you, I said. Not like I loved Celeste, maybe more safely, and you used that. I know. I hope one day you understand knowing is not the same as repair. I left her there because I had promised 5 minutes, and because for once I intended to keep a promise to myself. When I returned to the ballroom, Sloane was waiting where I had left her, plate in hand, as if trust could be as simple as not moving from a place someone might need to find you. Are you all right? She asked. No. I took the lemon tart. Better than I was. She nodded. Good enough for tonight. On the way home, snow began to fall. Not dramatically. New York snow at first was mostly wet indecision. It caught in Sloane's hair as we walked from the subway, turning her dark coat into a map of brief white stars. I was tipsy on confrontation and champagne and the nearness of her hand. Half a block from our building, she slipped on a patch of ice and caught herself with such offended dignity that I burst out laughing. You're laughing at a near injury, she said. I'm laughing at the face you made, like gravity failed a performance review. Gravity has been underperforming for years. I laughed harder. She watched me, snow on her lashes, and the amusement in her eyes shifted into something that made my laughter fade. We stood under a street lamp, breath visible, shoulders close. No Celeste, no Talia, no room to convince. Only us and the soft, wet hush of winter. Mira, Sloane said. Yes. I don't want to fake this tonight. My chest tightened. What do you want? To walk upstairs, make tea, and not pretend that I don't think about kissing you when no one is watching. There were more graceful responses. I said, Oh. Her mouth curved, nervous and real. That was not intended to alarm you. I'm not alarmed. You look alarmed. I'm trying not to sprint emotionally. Reasonable. I took one step closer. I think about it too. Sloane went still. Snow landed on her cheek and melted. I wanted to touch the drop of water left behind. I did not. Not yet. Then we should discuss whether our arrangement has become misleading, she said. I stared at her, then laughed softly. You are the only woman alive who could turn mutual attraction into a compliance meeting. It would be brief. I hope not. Her breath caught. It was small, almost lost in the city, but I heard it. The power of making Sloane Park lose composure for half a second was not something I was prepared to handle responsibly. I reached for her hand. She let me. Our fingers fit together with less drama than the moment deserved, and more certainty than I trusted. Upstairs, we did make tea. Sloane placed both mugs on the coffee table, then stood as if unsure what to do with her body in a room where the rules had changed. I took pity on both of us and sat on the couch, leaving space beside me. You can sit, I said. Thank you for the authorization. You started this. I expressed an interest in procedural clarity. You expressed an interest in kissing me. Sloane sat. Yes. The word dropped between us, simple and heavy. I turned toward her. I'm scared. I know. You are not a rebound. I know that too. I don't know if I'm ready for something real. I'm not asking you to be ready for everything. What are you asking for? Sloane looked down at our hands, not touching now, but close enough that a decision could cross the space. A chance to stop lying in one specific direction. I understood. We did not have to become girlfriends by midnight. We did not have to explain ourselves to a room, defeat Celeste, forgive Talia, or turn pain into a lesson with a bow around it. We only had to stop pretending that the warmth between us was entirely strategic. I reached up and touched her cheek. One kiss? Her eyes met mine, dark and steady. One honest kiss? This time she waited for me to come to her. I kissed her slowly, without performance, without the bright violence of humiliation behind it. Her mouth softened under mine, then answered with a restraint that trembled at the edges. I felt the difference immediately. The first kiss had been a shield. This one was a door. My finger slid into her hair. Her hand settled at my waist, careful until I leaned closer, and then she held me with a sound so quiet it nearly broke me. The room became warm, lamplit, full of breath and the faint steam of forgotten tea. When the kiss deepened, it did so because we chose it together, step by step, pause by pause, every boundary and invitation spoken or understood. Later, when we parted, I rested my forehead against hers and felt her smile before I saw it. "Still brief?" I whispered. "No," she said. I miscalculated. We did not become simple after that. The arrangement became more difficult precisely because it mattered. We agreed not to tell anyone immediately, which lasted 4 days because Sloane's mother called during breakfast, heard me in the background complaining about a client's font choice, and said in Korean-accented English, "Is that the woman you like?" Sloane closed her eyes. I nearly dropped my spoon into my oatmeal. "You told your mother," I hissed. "I told her I had a roommate." Her mother laughed through the phone. "I have ears. Bring her for New Year." Sloane turned a color I had never seen on her. I was so delighted that I forgot to be afraid for almost an hour. But outside our loft, Celeste was still Celeste. She did not enjoy losing control of a story, especially one she had expected to end with me quietly becoming a cautionary tale about emotional intensity. The final confrontation came at the winter showcase for independent designers, where I had a small installation of textile prints based on city windows at night. It was the first work I had made after the breakup that did not feel like proof of pain. Sloane helped me hang the panels the evening before, measuring distances with almost erotic seriousness, while I stood on a ladder and teased her until she threatened to label my entire studio corner non-compliant. The showcase mattered. Buyers came, editors came, people with the power to turn months of underpaid work into rent and reputation came. Celeste came too, because she had once introduced me to the curator and believed that gave her permanent narrative rights. Talia came with her, pale and quiet. I saw them from across the room and felt the old pain move, but it no longer owned all the space inside me. Sloane stood beside my installation in a charcoal suit, looking like she could personally reinforce the ceiling if necessary. She did not touch me. She did not need to. Before we entered, she had asked, "Public affection tonight?" And I had said, "Only if I reach first." She had nodded. That was love, I was beginning to think. Not grand claiming, but precise respect repeated until the body believed it. For an hour, everything went well. A buyer from a boutique hotel group asked for my card. An editor complimented the emotional restraint of the palette, which made me want to kiss her and also ask whether she had met my life. Sloane hovered at a distance, accepting tiny cups of white wine she did not drink. Then Celeste drifted toward me with 2 women from her circle, and a smile too gentle to be trusted. "Mira," she said, "the work is beautiful. Thank you. I always knew heartbreak would be good for your art." The women beside her laughed uncertainly. I felt heat rise in my chest, but it was different now, less shame, more fury with a spine. "That's a strange thing to take credit for," I said. Celeste's smile tightened. "I only meant you feel deeply, sometimes too deeply for your own good." Sloane looked over. I gave the smallest shake of my head. "Not yet." This was mine. Celeste stepped closer, lowering her voice enough to seem intimate while remaining audible. I worry about you. This thing with Sloane feels reactive. You don't have to keep performing because you're hurt. There it was again. Concern as erasure. Around us, the air shifted. People sensed drama the way animals sense weather. Talia stood near a pillar, watching with her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles whitened. I looked at Celeste, really looked. The woman I had loved was still beautiful. She still knew how to tilt her face toward light, how to make cruelty look like sophistication, how to turn a room into a jury and nominate herself mercy. But the spell had thinned. I saw the effort now. I saw how much of her power depended on other people agreeing to be smaller. I was hurt, I said. You made sure of that. Her eyes flashed. Mira. No. You don't get to use my name like a leash anymore. The room went still. Sloane did not move, but I felt her attention like a hand at my back. You cheated on me with my best friend, I continued, voice steady enough to surprise me. Then you let people call it complicated because that sounded better than selfish. You told them I was fragile, so my pain would look like personality instead of evidence. You do not get to stand beside my work and describe my healing as a performance. Celeste's face had gone pale beneath the careful makeup. This is not the place. It never was, according to you. Not the gallery, not the dinner, not the phone, not the hallway. There was never a place where my hurt was convenient enough to be real. One of the women beside Celeste looked at her as if seeing the seam in a dress. Celeste leaned in. You think Sloane will stay for this version of you? The one who needs public scenes to feel strong? I heard Sloane take one step. I raised my hand slightly and she stopped. I don't need her to stay because I win an argument, I said, and I don't need you to regret me for my life to continue. That is the part I wish I had understood sooner. Talia made a small sound. Celeste glanced toward her, furious at the betrayal of visible emotion. That glance did more damage than anything I could have said. Talia saw it. Her face changed, not healed, not redeemed, but awake. Sloane came to my side then because I reached back without looking, and her hand met mine immediately. The contact was not staged. It was not for Celeste, though Celeste saw it. Sloane's fingers threaded through mine, warm and sure. Celeste looked at our hands. So it's real now. I looked at Sloane. Her gaze was on me, not Celeste, waiting as always for my answer. Yes, I said, it's real. The words entered me as I said them and settled somewhere deep. Real did not mean easy. Real did not mean unafraid. It meant I was done letting the person who broke my trust define the shape of what came after. Celeste laughed once, brittle and small. How touching. Sloane's voice was calm enough to lower the temperature of the room. Leave. Celeste blinked. Excuse me? This is Mira's event. You've made your appearance. Leave. There were no raised voices, no dramatic threats, but something in Sloane's stillness made the instruction feel immovable. The curator, bless her professional instinct, appeared at Celeste's elbow with a smile that could cut ribbon. Let me walk you out, she said. Celeste looked at me one last time. I expected triumph, anger, maybe that old velvet sadness. What I saw instead was confusion. She had thrown the familiar weapons, and I had not picked them up. After she left, the room slowly remembered its wine and conversations. Talia remained by the pillar. Our eyes met. She mouthed, I'm sorry. I did not know whether I forgave her. I only knew I no longer needed to decide that night. I nodded once, and she began to cry quietly. Not for effect, not to be held, just because consequences had finally found her. My installation sold 2 pieces before the evening ended. I should mention that because romance is lovely, but rent is persuasive. Sloane insisted on carrying the paperwork home, as if contracts could bruise. I walked beside her through the cold with my hand in her coat pocket, fingers linked around hers. The city glittered with December lights. My phone buzzed with messages, some supportive, some nosy, all less important than the woman beside me. At the loft, I kicked off my heels and stood in the middle of the living room while Sloane locked the door. For months, that door had been an object of routine. Now it felt like a threshold I kept crossing into versions of myself I had not expected to survive long enough to meet. "You were extraordinary," Sloane said. I turned. "You are biased." "Yes." "No defense?" "I'm comfortable with the bias." My laugh came out tired and soft. Then the exhaustion hit. Public strength I had learned charged interest. I sat on the couch before my knees could make their own plan. Sloane crouched in front of me, still in her suit, hair slightly mussed from the wind. "What do you need?" she asked. The question no longer frightened me, or it frightened me less. "For you not to treat me like glass." "I don't." "Good." "I treat you like a load-bearing wall with water damage." I stared at her. "That may be the most romantic thing you've ever said." It was accurate. I touched the scar at her eyebrow with one finger. She went still under the contact, then relaxed. "I need you to kiss me," I said. "Not because anyone is watching, not because I proved something, because I'm home and you're here and I want you." Sloane's expression changed with a tenderness so open it made my throat ache. "That I can do." She kissed me there on the couch, slowly at first. Then with the warmth we had stopped pretending was accidental. I loved the way she paused when my breath caught, the way she smiled when I pulled her closer, the way her composure did not disappear so much as unfold into something private. The city lights drew pale lines across the floor. My sold artwork form sat on the coffee table beside two cold mugs from that morning. The radiator clanked. Ordinary things, sacred things. When the evening became too full for words, she asked if I was sure, and I said yes. And the rest belonged to us, quiet and tender and unperformed. By spring, people had stopped calling us surprising. That was how gossip died. Not in apology, but in boredom. Celeste moved to Los Angeles for a project she described online as a bold new chapter. Talia sent me a letter. A real one, 3 pages, no excuses elegant enough to hide in. I read it twice, cried once, and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I would answer. Maybe not. Healing, I had discovered, did not require immediate generosity. Sometimes it required a lock. Sloane and I did not rush to rename everything. We remained roommates for exactly 2 months after becoming lovers, because neither of us wanted the rent conversation to be romantic. Then, one morning, while I was brushing my teeth, Sloane leaned in the bathroom doorway and said, "I would like to keep living with you after the lease renews for reasons unrelated to financial efficiency." I spat toothpaste into the sink and said, "Are you asking me to move in with you in the apartment where I already live?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Your proposal has logistical weaknesses." She said, "I can revise." I kissed her with mint on my mouth and told her yes. On the anniversary of the gallery opening, we went back. Not to the same exhibit, not for closure exactly, but because a friend had work on the wall, and because I wanted to know whether the room still had power over me. I wore a blue dress this time. Sloane wore black, predictably, but with a silver pin I had bought her shaped like a tiny beam. She claimed it was structurally inaccurate and wore it anyway. The gallery looked smaller than I remembered. That was the thing about places where you had been humiliated. In memory, they became cathedrals. In daylight, they were rooms with exits. We stood near a painting of a flooded street, and Sloane handed me water without comment. I laughed. "You still think I forget to hydrate under emotional stress?" "You do." "I have grown." "You have." Hydration remains inconsistent. I looked around at the chandelier, the polished floor, the corner where Celeste had once made my pain public property. Nothing tightened in me. No ghost rose. No old version of myself demanded rescue. She was gone, or rather she had become part of me in the way healed breaks remain visible on X-rays. Evidence, not command. "Do you remember that night?" I asked. Sloane looked at me. Yes. You kissed me too hard. Her mouth curved. You asked me to kiss you. I asked for a performance. I am bad at theater. No, I said, taking her hand. You were bad at lying. She looked down at our fingers, then back at me. Around us, people moved through art and small talk, no one paying us more attention than any other couple standing under warm lights. That ordinary invisibility felt like victory. Not the sharp victory I had wanted when I kissed her to make Celeste jealous. A quieter one, the kind you live in. Are you happy? Sloane asked. It was a Sloane question, direct and load-bearing. I thought of the woman I had been in the black dress, trembling with humiliation, desperate to prove she had not been discarded. I wanted to go back and take her face in my hands. I wanted to tell her that being left was not the same as being emptied. That betrayal could expose a life, yes, but it could also reveal which walls were false. That one day she would stand in the same room with a woman who asked before touching her, who remembered food and exits and left side light, who kissed like honesty once she finally gave herself permission. Yes, I said. Not all the time. Not like a performance. But underneath, yes. Sloane nodded as if that answer mattered more than any easier one. Then she leaned down and kissed me. Not too hard, not too soft. Exactly as if no one had to be convinced of anything. My hand tightened around hers. The chandelier scattered light across her hair. Somewhere behind us, someone laughed, and the sound did not belong to my story unless I wanted it to. I had wanted revenge when this began. I had wanted Celeste to see me wanted, chosen, untouchable. I got something better and much more inconvenient. I got a life that did not require her witness. I got mornings with burnt toast and labeled spices, arguments about fonts, hands finding each other in grocery aisles, tea cooling on the table because kissing mattered more, and a woman who never treated my pain like proof that I was weak. Sloane pulled back just enough to rest her forehead against mine, and in the warm blur of the gallery I smiled, finally unashamed of being seen.